Hi, this is Joey Busuttil, and welcome to the first episode of the EUDAIMONIA Connection podcast. Now, what did that word mean? Well, I stumbled across that word by accident one day when I was playing around on Google, and the word is a Greek word that means fulfillment, seeking that internal happiness, being able to find that happiness in a way that isn't driven by anything or anyone. It's all driven by you, knowing that you've stepped into your purpose. Now, on today's show, we're going to be speaking to James Carson, a guy that I met on social media one day and asked him to be on another podcast of mine. He totally inspired me, and he's such a wonderful guy, and I want him to be the first guest. James, how are you?
Joe, I'm very well, mate. Thank you so very much for this honour to be episode number 1, mate.
Thank you. Well, it's more about now us recognising, I think, this essence of who we are rather than basing it on work. I know that you've done amazing things with your work. I know that you've been through an amazing journey with your body and with your mind. But, you know, for you, let's start off with you, I guess, just quickly just telling people a little bit about yourself, because I know not everyone would have heard the other podcast. So where you're from and what you do. So maybe start off there.
Definitely, Joey. So I grew up where I'm from, grew up in country western Queensland. But where I'm from now is originally the Gold Coast, but now Tweed Heads. And what I do is I work as a holistic health and wellness coach, work on one-on-one with clients, but also with organizations and corporate organizations on their overall health and well-being at work.
Cool. So let's start off with fulfillment. So how do you define, and this, I guess, because this is the first time I'm doing it, it is going to be just a flowing thing. There's no right or wrong answer. So how do you define fulfillment for you? How do you know that James is filled?
Yeah, Joe. So I gave that question a great lot of thought. To me, fulfillment was the first thing that came to mind, and it might sound cliche for some people, but it was just purpose. Like it came down to, for me, if I'm saying I'm fulfilled, I'm living my purpose. I'm doing what I love to do. I'm living up to my values, my beliefs, my morals. I'm doing the things that, whilst there's still hard work, but each day there's a smile on my face and there's love in my heart. So really just moving forward and doing the things that I believe in and that I love. That brings me joy, but also serves the world and serves the community in some way, because that brings me fulfillment as well.
So how do you know that you're living in that space versus living like materialistically or financially? You know what I mean? Like, you know, because a lot of people don't understand or don't know what their purpose is yet. I mean, I think we're lucky that we've been able to stumble into that space through our own experiences. But do you know when you've stepped off that platform and you're in a different place?
Yes. So I have experienced the materialistic money side of it, Joe, definitely. I've previously had other corporate roles that were paying well, that I was living in a nice apartment, that I really wanted to buy a Harley Davidson, and I ticked off all those things. And then in the end, there was this moment where I was like, oh, is that it? Like I just felt like there was something missing.
Well, you keep searching, isn't it? You keep wanting more and more.
Yeah. And I mean, in the end, it kept going, Joey. Like I went and chased the next higher role with the better title. I went and chased more income or whatever. But when you earn more, you spend more. And then it all sort of starts to catch up on you. And then in the end, I had to really sort of look deeply within and inwards to see, well, what will make me happy?
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
And so now, now you've left all that and you're here, right? You're in the, you're experiencing the eudaimonia feeling, right? But are there times when you step off that in the moment now? Like, are there times when your ego or something comes in and, you know, I guess it's really interesting to ask people how they pull themselves back into the space of authentic. We're all human. So do you ever feel that you do get pulled away into that world sort of maybe for a second or two?
Sometimes, Joe, I do. I know, you know, we're all human. There are times where we bounce back. There are times where I get caught up in sort of what, I don't know, materialistic things like what people might think about you on social media, what content you're putting out there, or the way you're perceived by people, or what, I don't know, what outfit I have or what car I have compared to a mate of mine. There are some times where you're just like, oh, you compare yourself to other people, right? That's probably one of the biggest ones. Yeah. And that's what social media might do, or that's what I've got a lot of mates who are very successful at what they do. And you're just like, wow, but that's they're doing their thing, I'm doing my thing. So sometimes you just look at that and you're like, oh, okay, That's
So how do
interesting.
you pull yourself out? Because again, you hit a real important point is that, everyone's doing their own thing, but yet we're always looking, right? And it takes a lot
Yeah.
of courage or maybe discipline to say, stop, I need to focus on me. I don't need to. So do you have anything like that you want to share or anything that you do in particular that grounds you, that brings you
Yes.
back into this beautiful space?
I think that the best example that I could give, Joe, is I think for example, if I'm comparing myself to one of my mates he works in sort of property development, real estate, mortgage refinancing or something like that, he does very, very well. But in my mind, I would never want to do that work. So I would never want to earn that money, like that money, that how he's earning it. I've got another friend who works in charity fundraising, sort of, they hit the streets and they charge an income to the charity to bring this money in. I would never want to do that as well. So for me, I'm living the life that I'm living. I'm earning the money that I'm earning by doing what I'm doing and what I love. And there are some people who are doing FIFO, which I would never want to do, and they can earn really good money for that.
Yeah.
There are some people who are working 60, 70 hours a week in a corporate role with the big fancy title and big salary, but I would never want to do that.
Yeah.
So
you're in the purpose, which is totally different.
Yes.
Right? Because the thing that I wanted to share with everyone was, if you are really living in the moment, right? So if I'm living now and I don't have the fancy car or the money or the house, then it doesn't matter. Right? So that's the thing I think people aren't doing. They're living I call it a fantasy state. They're living in an alter universe where, oh my God, I want that car because I'm now not worthy because that guy's got that car. I don't work hard enough because that guy works harder than me. But when you let go of that, that's where I think you find your purpose. Would you agree? Like, because you're doing what you love.
I agree, Joe. I agree. And you know what else? There's a lot to be said to society, because that's what's marketed to us, to what we should have. You see the Suncorp ads with the fancy, home loan rate, with the perfect family, the white picket fence. The husband goes off to work, the wife goes off here, the kids look great. That's just what the image that we're sold day in, day out. We get it sold in some way, shape or form. Children's movies, other movies. So
everywhere, really, isn't it?
Everywhere. And this is the car you have to have. Yeah.
I was going to say, do you think that is a solution? Because what you're saying is that it's everywhere. So does that mean we need to stop looking?
I think there's a way, there's a certain ownership that you take where you take a step back, you sort of disconnect from that. And for me, I had to just take I know it might sound spiritual or woo-woo to some people, but I had to sort of stop and look inwards and just ask myself some powerful life questions. Like, what do I love? What's important to me? What am I good at? What does the world might need?
That's what this show's all about. It's asking. Because I've lately started doing this concept, which I love. It's working for me. Is that I imagine that I'm playing a video game, and this is how old I am. I grabbed the console, and it's an Atari console or a Sega, and so I'm the only real thing in this universe. You're an avatar. Everyone's an avatar, right? So it really sort of makes me really understand that I've just got to look at myself, and it really brings all the attention back to me, which helps me not to take things personally or to compare. Because if you're an avatar, there's nothing real about you, even though you are real. You know what I mean? It's just the game I play with my head. So what would be the best version of you? What would that look like? Or, are you in it now?
I think it's a lifelong. A great question, Jay. It's a lifelong process. Yeah, for sure. I've certainly evolved a lot.
Yeah, so I know that, but I'm really curious just for you. I know I'm putting you on the spot. That's what this whole thing's about. I just want to know what you think that looks like. Like, how do you feel? What do you think that's going to feel like to have? I know we're always growing and learning, but do you feel that there is something that will make you really fulfilled within your internal work that you are either getting to or you're about to get to, or it's going to come? Like, do you have an idea of that ideal version?
I think, speaking honestly and like vulnerably right now, Joe, and I'm more than happy to do that with you. I think one of the biggest things for me that was missing for many years was love and connection, for sure. And I was very much an avoidant attachment style with relationships, with dating, with girls, with women, all sorts of things like that. And only recently, we're gone on 6 months now, we've been together, but only recently over the last couple of weeks have I been able to pull back the normal things that would trigger me, the normal things that would make me to push that person away, the normal things that I would use as an excuse to break up, where I'm actually looking, I can see a future life with this person where I've never had in a long time.
You surrendered in a way. You surrendered to it all.
That's an amazing word. Surrender is right.
Yeah.
Normally I'm like, oh, I'm scared. I don't want to get married. But now I'm like, and I could have kids. That'd be amazing. And I'm like, what?
Isn't it funny? It's funny when this question I think is very important, because we think that a lot of people would answer this question by saying, oh, I'm having it now. But the reality is that we all it's okay to have internal wishes, desires, and do the work. Like recently, I was watching a documentary on a Saturday night. That's how exciting my life is, on YouTube. And I was playing on the computer, and the documentary finished, and another one started, and I didn't even know. And I was listening, and it triggered me, and I put the computer away, and I was mesmerized for an hour and a half. And that documentary changed my life, right? And what I did afterwards was I announced my engagement to myself.
Wow.
I had this massive, like, epiphany that I am so finally in love with myself that I don't need, if it comes, it comes, but I don't need it. And it was the most nicest feeling to know, because I was always wanting one and not thinking I'm not going to get one. It was just always, why? What's wrong with me? What's happening? Why can't I hold on to one? And that was a big struggle for me. And in this space, I realized, oh my God, I'm it. I don't need that. And that was, for me, that was a big thing as a 53-year-old man. You know, so I think everyone will, inside, if they were honest and vulnerable like you were, thank you, you're able to see the truth, and it's okay, even if it's not maybe conventional. Like me admitting that I'm going to be probably alone, because I prefer that and I'm better at that, was such a big thing to get off my chest, because people don't want you to say that in reality. You know, everyone always say things like, oh, you'll get your partner, they'll come soon. I hate that. I get that every party. You know what I mean?
Yes,
do you get that as well sometimes?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. And what you're saying before, like both of us being vulnerable then and being able to share that, like me sharing that, you sharing that as well, people be able to connect with that and understand that there are some things that you might want to share that you're really uncomfortable to, and you don't want to say it out loud. But once you do, you feel free. Or once you have an epiphany, you feel free.
When you were saying, I don't mind sharing that with you, I think that's what you were doing, right? You were sort of going, should I, shouldn't I?
Yeah. It was a preface being like, this is going to be kind of heavy for me.
No, it's like what you just did there was you just opened up a dialogue for people to be in that space without, that's the beauty of what I'm trying to do on this podcast is it's okay to be vulnerable, because vulnerability is what makes us connect with fulfillment, right? Because it's all of us, right? It's all of who we are, not just, you know, what society wants. And I think that's what you were meaning about social media. It's like, you know, sometimes if someone's vulnerable, you're accepted once, but then you're vulnerable a few times. I feel like people tell you off, or they bully you, or they, you know what I mean? Like this whole judgmenty thing, where that's the thing that you know, if I could change one thing in the world, I just don't like judgment.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
I just want us to accept each other.
100%. And Joe, if I could turn the tables on you being the podcast interviewer here, if I was to ask you, fulfillment to you, what does that look like to you?
Well, I'm going to agree with you. It's like I only realized fulfillment, you know, in 2020. So COVID to me was the gift of discovering fulfillment. I know that sounds weird, but something strange happened. I discovered my purpose, right? And I discovered that I wanted to do this sort of work. And I already had a job as a therapist. I already had what I thought was my purpose, but it wasn't. My real purpose now, it's all about not making money, really, to be honest. It's all about this stuff. So sharing, right? Being of service. And then my mother mum got cancer, right? And in that time through COVID, I then elevated my fulfillment in that whole experience of seeing life pass and change and all that. And then when mum passed away, I stepped into her, and that's going to sound all, this is really woo-woo. I stepped into her and I instantly became her legacy.
Wow.
And that now I'm totally fulfilled. I don't need to have anything. It's weird. I can't explain it. Like, if I know I'm just being her legacy by doing this stuff and being authentic, because I could never talk like this 2-3 years ago.
Mm.
Like, I'm being myself now, because before I'd have to, oh my God, James, what am I going to say? Like, you know what? Now it's just being vulnerable 24 hours a day, because I don't really care, because no one's real. They're all avatars.
Wow.
So I don't know if that answers. Yeah, fulfillment to me is just being in my moment and just being totally connected to my mum and to everything.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean there's no. I don't believe in right or good or bad anymore. But because that's the problem, right? I just believe in it just is. So even my mum passing came with a beautiful gift. Because I don't know if I told you. So my mum is the person that created the Secret Men's business.
Is that right? Wow.
Yes. So that's why her legacy is important. Because every time I do something in this arena, she's with me. She's alive. So that to me is fulfillment.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Wonderful.
I want you to. Oh, I don't want you to think. Okay, I want you just to quickly answer. So I want you to tell me the things that bring you total blissful joy.
It brings me total blissful joy.
Love and family. Love and family.
Love and family, straight away. Love and family, adventure, health and life.
Yeah.
Really? Like
no ice cream or anything like that?
Say again?
No ice cream or anything like that?
Well, long time ago, yes.
How do you, like, with love, with family, which is beautiful, how do you feel that, you know, what do they do or what do you do? Well, really, you're doing it, aren't you? How do you generate joy from them? Like, is it a trust? What is it that gives you that?
Joy. Yeah, that's a great question. So I think joy with family it's just knowing that we have the love and support of each other. Like, you know, my mum and dad, as soon as I went away to boarding school in grade 7, like, we had a rule that you would at least ring once a week to check in and say hello. And we've kept that rule up until today. I'm 30 years old, so it's ongoing. So we always keep that. My brother and sister, every other week of the month, always check in. When we're together, we're together. We hang Mickey on each other, but we know we love each other. So it's just the joy of knowing that they're there, me being able to help them rather than be a hinder to them years ago.
Do you reckon that do you guys really see each other? Like, you know, how sometimes people, like, you know, I'm talking about they see you, they hear you. So there's that connection of really understanding each other. Do you reckon that's what you've got?
I think it has evolved a lot over the years. I think different family members, I have a deeper connection and understanding of that than others, for sure. I know my mother and I, we're very sort of deep in our understanding of each other. My father and I, not so much when I was younger, but even more so now. My sister a lot now, my brother a bit more now. So it's at different levels depending on the person.
Okay. So the next question, I want you to try not to answer via work, okay? Not take your work hat off for a moment and just be yourself. So what is James's, you know, space in his life that is about service? How are you of service to humanity in your everyday life?
In my everyday life, it's almost similar to you, almost, Joe, where I like to provide content and information that's somewhat humorous and entertaining, but has an educational and value factor to it as well. I love to sort of create videos that may not trigger people, but may make people think differently, may help people laugh, help people have a different understanding on a topic. There's that. Something else would be is I do, not that I talk about it a lot, but I do a lot of volunteer work as well in the background, and getting an understanding of being able to help people and not have anything back in return. It's just your time. It's just things that you're giving. It's your resources. It's your whatever.
Do you think it's part of your DNA? Has that been in your DNA? You know, I know that you went through a major change and transformation, but do you feel that you've always been the guy that's been destined to be of service?
Oh, it's a great question.
Like, because you got your purpose now, right? So if you think about the hero's journey, really, you've been working all your life to get to this purpose. So do you think that's been something that's been brewing? You know what I mean?
I don't know, Joe. When I was younger, I wanted to be a builder.
I get it, but like but if you look back though, were there little signs that you were caring and that you were compassionate, that you were, you know what I mean? Like, I think that if we look back, sometimes we can go, wow, it's always been there, but I just didn't notice until I was called to action.
I think there was a few things growing up, like going in country Western Queensland, like mum did Meals on Wheels, you know, where they deliver homes to the elderly who can't afford or get out of the house. So seeing her do that line of work was a big eye-opener for me as well. A lot of the values and lessons my mum and dad taught me, like dad taught me hard days work, taught me how to stick by your mates, all these things to look after each other, playing sport, all these different things. Sport was one of the most amazing things that taught me about teamwork, leadership, hard work, all these different things. And I was always a very shy kid, but I had a message or something to release, but I was too scared to.
Yeah. I mean, like you've got a beautiful heart.
No, thank you, Joe.
Like, that's really open for guys, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
you know, you've got to, it's just open. It's never been closed in the time I've met you. So, you know, that's to me is a special gift because not everyone's got that. You know, there's always an agenda or there's always something or there's a fear but yours, I always feel like it's open. So, you know, and by the way, I love your videos. I love them. You haven't been posting the ones that were you were very creative at one point where you're doing this whole like double people and all that. And I'm thinking, where are they? I want more of them.
Well, I'll do more. Thank you for the inspiration, mate.
They're good. Okay, so inspiration is the next topic, actually. So who do you know, in your life of fulfillment, where or who is your place of appreciation? Like, who are the people that I know you mentioned family, but are there anyone outside of the family that you are drawn towards that fulfills you in regards to filling your inspiration and filling your sense of purpose?
I think if I to think on that straight away, a lot of it would be many people that I've come into contact with over the years, whether they've played very small roles or very major roles, part of it. To give you an example, a very small role of how that's inspired me to do my work was when I was working at the hospitals. I was in a palliative care ward. There was a gentleman there who was a couple of days away. He was on end of life category, like he was on a couple of days from passing away. And I don't know why, but I was just walking past him and just, you know, the robotic Australian thing, go, hey, how are you? G'day, mate, how are you? Which is silly because he's in a palliative care ward. But he just said, yeah, good, thanks. And I was like, that's good. And I just kept walking. And I was like, I feel like such an idiot for asking that. But in my head, I was like, he's literally a few days away from leaving this planet. And for me, I was like, wow, like he's a bit older than me, but I'm like, you know, that could be me for any other circumstance.
I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
No, because you know, you were present, and I don't think what you did was silly at all. I think that it was beautiful.
Yeah, well, it was just I just didn't know what to say to him, Joe. Like, if you ever meet someone like in that situation, like you don't know what to say. Like how's your day going? What are you up to next week?
Well, if I could just, you know, share, like when Mum was at the end of her life, she was in palliative care, and one of the things that I noticed was that people didn't speak to people. So I think what you did was beautiful. I mean, there were so many people that had no one there.
Yeah.
They had told people not to come.
Yeah, right.
Like this guy that was next to Mum, he told his family not to come because he didn't want them to see that. And so a simple comment is, you know, it's but all meant to be about, you know, ending your life and being fulfilled. Because if you don't do this sort of work, you end up being in that space in the end of your life where you're doing all the work then. You know what I mean? Like mum did that. Like mum told me things that I was craving for all of my life at the last half an hour. Really? I'm saying to her, why did you hold off that long when you could have told me? It's like I saw a different person, you know? So last question, my friend. So what do you feel or want? What is your legacy going to be?
My legacy. Wow, that's a great question.
I know they're big questions. I'm so sorry.
No, mate, that's great. It's great. You think on the fly. So it makes it more organic. So my legacy, I think, if I was to leave this planet and there was a bunch of people at my funeral and someone was to read the eulogy for me, I would just hope that they would say he's one of the most loving, kind humans to hit this planet, who's a person who would give you the shirt off his back, who would do something as small as pick a piece of rubbish off the ground or donate days of his time towards a cause, someone who's incredibly creative, courageous, knows his way around a joke. Someone who will be sincerely missed.
Well, that's the name of the podcast now. So the podcast is now called, your podcast is called, You Are a Loving and Caring Guy That's Lived on This Planet. So thank you, James, for being our very first EUDAIMONIA Connection for this series of podcasts. And I appreciate all your vulnerability. And yeah, I will put I'll put some information about you on the end of this podcast so people, if they want to connect, can connect. But namaste, my friend. Thank you for your open heart and everything that you offer the world.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. Oh, goosebumps myself, mate. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. All right, you've been listening to the EUDAIMONIA Connection. Yes, it's Greek for fulfillment. So make sure that you look out for the next podcast. We're simply going to chat and interview people that inspire and live their purpose. Till next time. Bye-bye.